Hey, folks, it's that time again. It's time for another session of getting to know Dynatrace. My name is David Jones. Everyone calls me Jonesy, so feel free. I'm going to be your host today for another session. And as with always with these sessions, we've got a couple of upfront segments that we like to go through, and then we're going to hand things off, and we're going to have our guest sales engineer do a demonstration. Today we've got second time around, Shawn Pearson. Hey, Shawn, how you doing, brother?
Hey, how you doing? Like what? 3 more punches for a free sandwich on the
There we
card? Is
go.
that how it works?
Exactly. You bet. Absolutely. Okay. So, folks, we'll just wait a moment for everybody to sort of get dialed in here. I'm just doing a little checky on my other screen to make sure that this is going live. And then I'm going to start sharing my screen. So let's get my screen up. Here we go. Oh, well, look at that infinite recursion. Now let's stop. There we go. So another session of getting to know Dynatrace. And folks, if you're new to Dynatrace, we're going to walk you through a little bit about Dynatrace so you can get to know about the platform and some of the different and interesting things that we do. If you are familiar with Dynatrace, you might pick up something new because we always try to throw some curveballs in there and talk about things that you may not be aware of. Now, with these sessions of getting to know Dynatrace, what makes them so interesting, so fun, and so useful are your questions. So please feel free to ask questions. Go ahead into, if you're using LinkedIn, if you're using YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, whatever that channel is, if you can got a little chat session going in there, fire us some questions and we'll do our best to answer those questions. And with that, let's get into our first segment of getting to know Dynatrace, which is the What's New segment. And as with all the other What's New segments, where do you go to find out what's new at Dynatrace? You go to our blog site. Pardon me. So you go to the blog, and we've got all sorts of different things that are new and exciting, new announcements, new blog articles, release information. As a matter of fact, let's actually do that. Let's pop over into the blog here. Let's grab this one right here. There we go. And, a couple of interesting things that we have going on. We've got a on-demand webinar, which is basically talking about the state of SRE in 2022. SRE. What does SRE mean? That's site reliability engineering. So this is a practice of, individuals that I have to say really sort of sprouted out of the Google community. They were very pro SRE focused. And as a matter of fact, they kind of spun that off into the whole observability space. So if you hear about the term observability, which is really the combination of grabbing metrics and traces and logs to help manage your applications, observability grew out of that SRE community. And so we've got a webinar that actually talks about, what's going on in the SRE community, right now. So we invite you to, give that a watch. In addition to that, we can see here that we've got some interesting blog articles on, understanding and replaying Android app crashes with Session Replay. We've got some down here some blog article on how organizations can build a stronger DevSecOps maturity model with some best practices. We've got a blog article on how to track business KPIs, and you can see here we've got release notes. So if you're new to Dynatrace, you may not know this, but Dynatrace releases a new version twice a month. So every couple of weeks, our SaaS version, we are constantly updating it. And so there's always going to be new functionality, new features, new technologies that we support. About once a month, though, we update our managed version. So the managed version of Dynatrace is a instance of Dynatrace that you can run on premise. You can run it inside of your own organization. Your clusters are hosted on your infrastructure. And here you can see that there's a whole bunch of new features that are all been added to the managed version of Dynatrace. Now, let's see if we go back here. There's a couple of other things that I wanted to mention, and that was we've got our SaaS release notes down here. We've got, in this particular case, a blog article on how to use the Data Explorer And I think we talked last time that we were doing a getting to know Dynatrace session. We talked about this, how Dynatrace was ranked #1 in AI ops platforms by Research in Action. So thank you very much to the folks at Research in Action for giving us that call out. We do really appreciate that. We are, obviously Dynatrace is, well thought of in the industry. We have high ranking with Gartner, with Forrester, definitely organizations like Research in Action. This is very helpful, for us. So that's it for what's new. Let's move on to the Did You Know? Okay, so this is Did You Know? What we try to do during this segment is we try to find out things that you may or may not have been aware of. And so, did you know that there is an online learning capability called Dynatrace University? So, Dynatrace University is something that is hosted by us that allows you to learn more about Dynatrace. As a matter of fact, let's just go flip over here and let me walk you into Dynatrace University. So here we are. You can see that university ultimately provides on-demand learning experience. You have the option of participating in live training, and we even offer certification. It's real simple to get into. You basically log into Dynatrace University. If you have access to Dynatrace, if you've signed up for a free trial, if you're using Dynatrace, you should get access to Dynatrace University. And then it basically allows you to go through and start a tailored course load, and you can learn all about Dynatrace. There's embedded videos, there's content, and this is available in an on-demand facility. You can go in and participate, as we mentioned, in the live training. But more importantly, you can also do certification. You can get associate certified, professional certified, master certified. And that's something that you take with you in your career. And we see as an example, I'm up in Canada, right? So I'm up in the Great White North, and in Canada, every month there's probably, across all of our customers, maybe 3,000 people that are logging into Dynatrace on a daily basis. And what we're seeing is, and what we're promoting is, people get their certification for Dynatrace. It's something that that will advance your career, that it will open up other opportunities within your organizations and outside your organization, in terms of having that certified expertise with Dynatrace. So that's something that you may not have known about, that you can in fact actually go out and get certified on Dynatrace. And we do have this Dynatrace University that help facilitate you to learn more about Dynatrace, and then ultimately be able to take the test to achieve this certification. This is, to be honest, folks, this is a fairly this is a very serious sort of process, getting certified. When you do get certified, you're going to be doing it in a very controlled, sort of proctored fashion. So there, is going to be people there that are proctoring these exams and these tests, making sure that you're going through and doing the certification in the way that we want you to. So these certifications, as I said, they really do hold a lot of weight, and we invite you to go out, join the university, and get yourself certified. And with that, folks, that's the end of this week's Did You Know? And it's off to now time for the best part of getting to know Dynatrace, which is the demo. So hey, Shawn, let me get you set up. I'm going to stop sharing now. We're going to hand things over to you. And before Shawn gets started, as we mentioned, folks, what makes these sessions so valuable is your questions. So please feel free to ask us questions, and we'll do our best to get them answered. And with that, I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to hand things. Wait. We're going to start off with a question. We have an application with Dynatrace which has traffic from private and public users. Is it possible to create different tags to differentiate users based upon IP addresses?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. I got to think about that one. We're starting off today's session with a really interesting question. So now, one of the things that you could potentially do is inside of Dynatrace's user sessions, there's a functionality called session properties. And so one of the things that you could do, rather the tagging doesn't necessarily apply to a user session. The same way that you would tag an entity, like you would tag a service, or you would tag a host, or tag a process, that tagging doesn't necessarily apply in the same way to user sessions. But if I had two groups of users and I wanted to be able to segment them off in different fashions, one of the ways I would think about doing it is using the session properties. Using those session properties. A session property is something that you can attach to the user session, and you could base the session property on, header information. So, for example, if you wanted to use IP addresses, you could certainly do that. If you've got other mechanisms and ways of differentiating between one type of user and another, you could do that as well. Like, for example, we have customers that use like customer status as a way of segmenting out their user sessions. So you've got bronze customers, silver customers, gold customers. So great question. I would say that what you want to look into is probably the session properties, and use the session properties to segment out those user sessions for these are, public users and these are private users. What do you think about that? Do you have any other suggestions there? Shawn, on that one? What do you think?
Oh, no, not at all. I actually just brought it up on my screen. So when I flip over to the demo, I'll be right on that page and can show that.
Perfect. Yeah, all right, let's get there. Hey, we've got another question from David. David, do you mind if we just put a pin in that question? But we'll come right back to you, okay? Because we can show you, how to set up SNMP within our Extensions 2.0 framework. All right, Shawn, we'll hand it over to you, bud. Let's get going. Let's
cool.
Get into the demo.
Fantastic. So my thought process here is to do kind of like 10 to 15 minutes of sort of just hitting kind of the key staples in Dynatrace. So starting off with, generally, I would start off with a dashboard. You can see here a session detail screen that I pulled up based on that great question we just had. But just a bit of the dashboard so you can see the breadth of what Dynatrace does. Then just a little bit about how we implement it, very quick technical detail. If the SNMP trap question that we had, also a great one, I can just touch that briefly when we're on the hub. And then show you Dynatrace's Smartscape of how it is looking at everything that it is seeing happening on all the hosts, and it's stitching everything together. I'll share that briefly. And then really the key thing that Dynatrace is doing at its core is the AI engine of Davis is looking across all of those transactions and all the parts of the application and helping us generate problem cards and quickly identify problems. So that's what I'll hit here in 10 to 15 minutes. But like Jonesy said, if there's any questions you see as we go along, please feel free to ask those. We'll either try to nail them as we go, or we can come back to them at any time. So just to kind of tag on to the question around session details, this is a little bit beyond what I'd like to start with generally, but it was a great question. And just to kind of give the visual for what Jonesy was mentioning, we track individual sessions with Dynatrace, summarize them so you can see what's happening across your application at a much higher level. But you can just see, for example, a bunch of the details you can get here on the screen for an individual session. So one person, we have the IP address, like Jonesy mentioned, and then we can collect things, and we can, tagging is different, but we can do properties based on that to essentially tag these sessions with similar things. So you can have, we know what homepage they were on, for example, already. We know what kind of page it was based on the Adobe page type, and you can split them up easily there and then search for them, filter them later. So I'll pop back over here to the main starting place for Dynatrace. Like I mentioned, this is just a dashboard that I've created that I use generally when I share Dynatrace with new people to the product. Essentially, the way I've built this is I've set it up into columns here just to give you an idea, depending on sort of the different sort of personas that might want to use Dynatrace, how Dynatrace can fit into and supply great information, kind of no matter who you are in the organization that might use Dynatrace. So you can see on the left side of the screen, I've got the idea of Dynatrace pulling in key real user metrics, giving us that really important front end view geographically with how users are connecting in. If they're successful, it's green. If there's problems, yellow. If there's something else going on, it's red. To top web application statistics across things, come from a very high level, kind of like way up in space, kind of looking down at the earth. And the kind of the conversion rate, if we have a super critical metric that is the heart blood of our organization, you can pull that out with Dynatrace very easily here and show kind of a key rate here from a very high level. Then, not to go into all of these columns too much, but that's kind of the top end. Then you can have like critical business specific metrics for different areas in the organizations. You can have things like service level objectives. So if your company is talking about using SLAs and using SLOs and getting into that kind of service level area, Dynatrace is great because it has access to everything. It sees all of the transactions that are flowing across your services and your applications, and you can just essentially pick them out of the list, put a circle around them, and raise them up to a dashboard to become a service level and show positive week-to-week status on things, where a lot of times it seems like in organizations, people don't notice IT until there's a problem. This gives you a great way to show something in a positive week-to-week format that's easily digestible for anybody. Moving forward across a couple more of these, couple of great questions coming in. I'll pause there for in a second. But then we have the idea of like app development views. So if you're an application developer, you're like a DevOps person, we can start to look at key transactions for specific components in an application. You can get to the JavaScript errors that are going on underneath. And Dynatrace has full native support for mobile applications. So it's not just sort of a painted on thing that you may find in other products and in other areas. Dynatrace can fully instrument via SDK into mobile applications and really start to radio back information about crashes, how the application is performing, what versions might be running on applications on certain devices that are a problem. Sorry, was there something there, Jonesy?
No, I apologize, man. That was literally just me getting over the cold. I apologize.
No problem at all. It happens to everybody. So you've got that view. Then you've got like the idea of an operations control tower. So you have a lot of applications, a lot of infrastructure running on all of those. With Dynatrace, you can have a team sitting centrally, sort of at the cockpit of the entire airplane, and be able to see application health across the entire world, services all running throughout, hosts, databases behind the scenes. And I'll show you the Smartscape in a second too, for a really good view into how it's stitching all of those things together and giving operations people just unprecedented control and view of what they're seeing across their world. Then we can go specifically into the infrastructure with Dynatrace. Again, so we're getting lower and lower and lower. I call this my Heimdall's view, just for goofy nerd reasons, because I like the whole idea of Heimdall in the Marvel movies or from the Viking lore, being able to see everything at a big, wide perspective, but then you also zoom all the way down and see an individual person walking around on the street. Kind of the same idea here as we get into the infrastructure, being able to see individual components in AWS, being able to see specific databases, and then all the way down into the network metrics between the application components in your environment. The last one is synthetics. Just to mention it briefly, Dynatrace has the ability to do amazing synthetics and be able to replicate every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, or kind of whatever schedule you might want, a login process, or being able to connect into an important service that you have, and making sure that overnight it's running and it's good and it's consistently, objectively running solidly, so that when business flows in that next morning, you've got that confidence that things are working like they're supposed to, and that from multiple locations geographically, access is working and everybody can get in. So quick view there into what Dynatrace is doing at a kind of a high level overview dashboard wise. I don't know if we saw any questions come in that we want to hit here, or if not, I can bounce on to how we get here.
Let's see what we got. I'm actually trying to, let's talk about the SNMP trap. How about that one?
Let me go ahead and move on to, sort of like I was just showing there everything that we can do with Dynatrace. Everything on those screens that the dashboards you saw are being collected and being built for you with Dynatrace without having to do anything beyond adding the one agent to those hosts. And not to go too much into the technical details, unless we have some people that want to do that more and we decide to go there. But just briefly, what Dynatrace is doing is it is an agent that runs on a host in most cases. It's a simple download. There's Windows versions, there's Linux. I should say it's all the same one agent. Of course, you have to deliver it differently on those different systems, right? So you've got Windows distribution, a Linux distribution. You can go to mainframe. You can do, there's a Kubernetes, there's Docker versions. There's all kinds of cool ways to deploy it into Azure or AWS or Google. All of it's the same, works the same way. It does the same kind of thing. And all you do is run it either through automation or just drop it on those systems yourself. And it will immediately start to detect all the processes that are running on that, whatever that entity is. It could be a host, it could be a container, and it will get all of the key metrics from infrastructure, instrument into the processes that are running, and then immediately start giving you that service view of everything that is incoming to that host, and then everything downstream, everything that that host depends on. Dynatrace will automatically start stitching all of that together for you. So before I move on to the Smartscape that we talked about how it's doing all of that, I'll pop back to the hub here real briefly, and Jonesy, feel free to jump in if you wanted to, but I just wanted to point everybody at the Dynatrace hub, which if you go to dynatrace.com/hub, you can see a version of this yourself. I just happen to be in the tenant where it's directly connected in on the tenant itself. The one agent can be deployed from our hub, which is how you can get to all of these different technologies. But if you do something like type in SNMP, you'll get documentation and instructions and how to add SNMP traps and network devices and other things related to SNMP, all from the hub itself. So thank you very much for putting in the link. Wow, 2 people put it in at the same time. That was awesome. So either one of those, both of them work exactly the same way. And Jonesy, I'll pop back to you to see if you had any thoughts on SNMP or if anything else on the hub we might want to hit.
No, I think you just sort of nailed it. So one of the things around the SNMP, folks, is and the Extensions 2.0 framework is that it's been designed to allow people to connect to these devices very, very easily, right? As you saw there, it's like literally all you're doing is you're pointing to the device. Sometimes you got to pass along some credentials, but that's all it takes. And then once those metrics start to get ingested into Dynatrace, we have a whole bunch of pre-populated dashboards that you can pre-populate with the data coming in from these devices. So it's it's just really simple to use, and we invite you to give it a try.
Cool. So yep, that sounds great from the SNMP connection. So somebody else popped up was struggling setting up a dashboard, which is Web Vitals, the same way Google does. The goal will be to segment them on different. I got 3 dots there and it dropped off. That's a really good specific question. I don't know if we want to dive into like the Web Vitals too much, other than, from the web application perspective, we do have those Web Vital statistics available, and that's what a lot of our app decks and other things are based off of. So I don't know why that one popped up specifically, but sorry.
No. So let me just share my screen for a second here, and let's talk about like some of those, what are termed Web Vital type, pieces of data. So as an example, if I was to go into, let's just say here, a user session. So in the user sessions, and let me just grab this one right here as an example. So user sessions, you can drill down into this waterfall view. Now, the waterfall view is going to give you all sorts of different timings, and this is going to be, in some cases, these are W3C metrics. Some of those, vitals that you're talking about, they're also available, but sometimes what you might have to do is, in certain scenarios inside of Dynatrace, you might need to create a custom metric around it to actually trend it out over time. But all of these things related to navigation start times, request start, time to first byte, visually complete time, your DOM content loaded, these things. And when you actually are looking at a request itself, there are additional phases that are available, and that data is there, and they tell you different things. So for example, in this particular case, When you're looking at things like blocking time, blocking time is the amount of time that it's taking for the browser to basically get set up to start making TCP requests. And then you've got the, other things like, for example, the application cache. So if you've got, information that you can fetch from the browser's cache, you can, see that timing associated here. But then there's also things like DNS lookup, your TCP connect. This would be all of your, that sort of, SYN hack part of the actual connection. Then you've got your SSL, or your, I'm dating myself here, it's now TLS, but this is when you're negotiating that secure connection. And then you've got metrics like, for example, here, your request time. That's the amount of time that it takes for us to receive the first packet of data in response to the initial request. Then the response itself is typically the payload. The processing is how much time it's taking on the browser side to do something with that data. So all of these metrics are, in fact, actually available to you. And what I was trying to do in the background, but I was unsuccessful, was I was trying to connect to our BizOps configurator. Because the BizOps configurator, this is a tool that's out on GitHub. And what the BizOps configurator does, it allows us to basically choose from a set of predefined dashboards. So if you're looking for different sort of suggestions on dashboards, go out and give this BizOps configurator a try. We'll keep going with the demo, and in the background, I'm going to try to get this set up so we can actually walk you guys through it, so you can see all of the different types of visualizations and dashboards that you could just literally just pick and choose to add to your Dynatrace environment. So let's put it back over to you here, and let's continue on with the demo.
Sounds good. All right, so I'll keep rolling through the next couple of bits of this, and then of course we can stop for more questions as I need to. So where I was and where I left off was on dynatrace.com/hub, the ability to look at all of the different sorts of technologies and different stacks that you can bring in. It sounds like there were a couple more specific questions there on those, which might be worth catching up after this, which I'm more than happy to do if you're getting into specific config. So for purposes of this call, we'll kind of roll on from the hub. And so in general, what Dynatrace is doing once that agent is running on a host is it's looking at all of the different individual services that are moving between all of the downstream hosts and everything that is coming into where this host lives. And Dynatrace builds. And honestly, I love just having this map up. And back when I was in the corporate world, I would just sometimes have this on my desktop to look really smart, because Dynatrace is giving you a full, accurate topology map of what's going on in your organization, like between your applications. And you can see here with all of these little individual bubbles, which I realize are kind of small. I apologize for that. But you can see these little blue arrows moving between places. So I can tell that this customer front end is going downstream to services, and then those services are going into databases and back. So with Dynatrace, you have just unprecedented ability to look at a specific application. And what might be worth pointing out here too, because it's really busy, we have the idea in Dynatrace of management zones, which is a way simply, it's just tagging, like we talked about a little bit earlier, to take a set of services or a group of things that sort of have a like kind of business function, or they have some particular purpose to be together. And we have the hipster shop example here, where I can click on this guy and drop right down into a specific application. And you can see Dynatrace instantly distills out everything else that is not related to this and just shows me the particular application. And I mentioned this because we've had a couple of cases just this week where large customers have been trying to figure out how to take an application that they currently have on-prem, and they want to move this application to their cloud of choice. And with Dynatrace, all they have to do is pick their application, let the rest of Dynatrace distill everything else out, and you can see all of the connections and all of the different pieces and parts that the application uses from the beginning. And so they can easily make sure that they are going to get all of the services that are related to this application correct the first time when they want to move this to the cloud and know exactly which services they need to move with it so it's successful when it moves out to the cloud. So had a couple of great customers do that this week, and it was a cool story to mention. So great opportunity for Dynatrace to show that to you just with this map. Last thing to mention here really quick, and then I'll see if Jones, if there's anything else or any questions, was just to mention that with Dynatrace having this ability, it also has a great connector built into ServiceNow. So if you are using ServiceNow today, or if you're kicking around using the CMDB functions in ServiceNow, Dynatrace has a great connector built in that allows you essentially to superpower or start up that ServiceNow CMDB with this data from Dynatrace. And this data is accurate and it's always up to date, and the topology model is good. And so it can really help improve what you see in ServiceNow with that CMDB. So I'll pause again there for a second. I saw a bunch of stuff pop up in chat.
Yeah, just one second on the ServiceNow piece. Let's actually, you know what? Let's not leave people hanging. Let me take the screen here and show everyone. Someone, I should say everyone here. Sorry guys, I'm like triple tasking trying to get this business.
Yeah, you're doing a lot in a demo. That's impressive.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get this going. So what I'm doing right now is I'm logging into an instance of ServiceNow. And so inside this instance of ServiceNow, I've got here a bunch of CIs, and they are all being populated by Dynatrace. So using something called the Service Graph Connector. This is available on the ServiceNow store. You use this Service Graph Connector to connect to your Dynatrace instance. And now what happens is I could go into this whole pre-populated list of CIs and hosts that are coming from Dynatrace. So that topology that you see inside of the Smartscape is basically being used to populate the CMDB inside of ServiceNow. So for example, I'm in ServiceNow, I dropped into this Windows server, these upstream relationships here, all of these upstream relationships, that information is being driven by Dynatrace. Like that is literally, that relationship information has been discovered by Dynatrace and now exists inside of ServiceNow. The relationship between ServiceNow and Dynatrace can be bidirectional. We can take event information and we can see that show up in our problem cards. In addition, when we detect a problem, we can obviously create an ITSM ticket, or we can also trigger an ITOM event. And so that's combined with that CMDB information is a real sort of example of just the power of connecting Dynatrace to something like ServiceNow. Now, I'm going to take a step back for a moment, and I want to reset the conversation back to the one that we were talking about, where I wanted to show some sort of dashboards for the person that was looking for different visualizations. This is now, if you go look on GitHub for Dynatrace BizOps, you can get access to this configurator. Now, I have to generate a token, which was taking me a little bit of time in the background. Once I generated that token, now I could go in and I can get a list of all of the different dashboards that are available to me that I can just literally pick and choose. And these are everything from, application health, heat maps, application RUM. So like, for example, here, now we've got like all sorts of different metrics. Now, these ones happen to be more focused towards user sessions, but you can see here that you get just, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of different dashboards that are available to you. So give this a try. Obviously, some of these are going to, help out and provide a little bit more detail around, some of those metrics that you're looking for, but you can just see here that there's just a whole wide set of different visualizations and dashboards that you can take advantage of. Let's see here. Is there anyone in particular? Like some of these, I like some of these, like these marketing campaign ones here, where we're using some of those, measures that you would consider to be those sort of core vitals things like visually complete as an example. So what we're doing is we're measuring the visually complete and then helping understand if that's impacting our abandonments or our conversions. So again, give this a try. I think you'll find that it's a really interesting sort of capability that you can just layer right on top of your existing Dynatrace instance. It doesn't cost anything. All you have to do is just generate a token. You use your tenant ID, your token, and you can connect to the BizOps configurator and then just use this to automatically set up those dashboards for you. All right, let's go back. So, Shawn, back to you, brother.
All right, fantastic. So, kind of just picking up where we were a minute ago, we were talking about the Smartscape, with the idea being with Dynatrace, you have the host that is implemented with Dynatrace. It's seeing all the services and processes that are running on that host and everything upstream and downstream. The one thing I just wanted to briefly mention before we kind of get to the crux of what Dynatrace is doing with that Davis AI problem detection is that I just think it's pretty cool personally myself that not only is Dynatrace looking between the services kind of upstream and downstream, but in the same Smartscape view, if I click on one of the hosts that exists in there, or in this case, I just picked a data center, what you can see Dynatrace also is tracking is it can tell when you have that host with Dynatrace on it, what data center that lives in. And we have really great best of breed monitoring when it comes to Azure and AWS metrics and being able to pull those things into and understanding the infrastructure of the data center. But in this case, I can see the host. I can see all the processes that are running on that host that might be serving some sort of function. And in this case, you can see this. Oh, sorry, good.
Yeah, no. Can I interrupt you for a second? Like,
I get it, just because it's you. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Before we get into too deep in this view right here, can you do a quick search and find the West Europe Azure instance inside of the Smartscape? And, there's a particular reason I want to use the Western Europe Azure region.
Oh, Western Europe.
Yeah. So this we just go Western Europe.
Do I have to go find it here?
No, I think it's all one word, maybe, but yeah.
I don't know if I can do it that way.
Or it might be West Europe instead of Western, but just see if you can pick it out here for a second. And there's a reason I want to do this, because you're going through and explain. Yeah, that's it. So what do you know?
Really big one.
Yeah, it's really different, isn't it? Yeah, this one's a cool one. So go on and keep explaining what you were explaining, but then we'll talk about what we're seeing over here on the right hand side, because that's actually really super cool as well.
All right, super cool. So same thing I was just mentioned before. You've got a data center with a bunch of hosts running in it. And I guess kind of the one I picked the one because it kind of fits on one screen, but I think I see where you're going. So I'll just kind of finish it up to say that we've got the processes running on here. So in this case, you've got some Node.js, you've got some ASP.NET, and then those processes then, of course, are serving a service on top, whatever function that might be. So a web request service to handle login or to do a search. And then with Dynatrace, we're able to go all the way up to that top end website. And so whatever your company's website is that people might log into, you can, when that login happens or when people connect to that page, Dynatrace is able to see all the way down to the roots of what's happening in the infrastructure in a clean, consistent, constantly up-to-date picture. And so if you're in a situation where sometimes you either don't know, like, hey, when I log in, I'm not sure which backend service the operational guys have this running on, or if you're in operations wondering where services or where logins are coming from, with Dynatrace, everybody can get on the same page, and it really enables like next level collaboration that you really can't get anywhere else. And it's been so fun to be in places, both in corporate world for me personally and with lots of customers we work with in Dynatrace, being able to see a picture like this that really helps us work together when we're trying to solve problems. So I'll pause there, Jonesy. You want to go to the right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Awesome thing. So, what do you fancy here?
So what you're seeing, folks, everything to the left that Shawn was just showing us, that's basically the Dynatrace One agents installed on those hosts. So we've installed the Linux version of the One agent, the Windows version of the One agent. But over on the right-hand side, what we've done is we've actually connected to, in this case, the Azure subscription. And now as we connect to that Azure subscription, we're pulling metrics and data from Azure Monitor. And so some of these things here, you can see like you've got your Azure or Service Bus, you've got your Azure load balancers, your Azure SQL Server. All of the metrics that are coming into Dynatrace are coming directly from Azure. There's no agent that we've deployed here. We're just connecting to Azure. We're pulling in these metrics, and Dynatrace is automatically creating those entities. And what we can see is when our application are using those services and entities, you can see those lines being connected. Basically, what this is showing us is how our entity model extends itself past just what we've installed our agent onto, and it extends itself to services that we're connecting to via our API. So these are ingested metrics that are coming from Azure, but Dynatrace is smart enough to know that that represents a unique entity. And so in the future now, if any one of these entities is causing an issue related to my application, we're going to be aware of it. We're going to see that pop up in those problem cards. I particularly like this, like this view here, and go and click on one of those, like that process view for that Azure SQL Server that you've got highlighted right now.
Right here.
Yeah. Just click on that guy. So now what we can see is we can see what's connected to it. So here you can see that you've basically got some Apache Tomcat that's connected to that service that was also being connected to from that Azure load balancer. You've only installed the agent probably on 1 or 2 VMs there. And the other things that are being connected to, like that load balancer and that database, that's all Dynatrace, basically connecting the dots when we connect to that Azure subscription.
That is so cool.
That is very cool. That is very, very cool. All right. We've got a question. We've got a question here from David, which is, will Dynatrace have integration with storage like Dell EMC PowerMax? So let's see if we go back. This is one of those hub-related questions, and let's just see what we got for Dell. Nothing off the top of my head that I'm seeing for Dell.
I don't know if the
EMC.
I was just going to say the link for the Dynatrace hub we did have up there earlier. Maybe we could drop it into the chat again. So
yeah,
can grab it.
So I'm off the top of my head, I'm not seeing anything in the hub right now for EMC or for Dell. But that being said, that's not to say that we couldn't do this. Dynatrace's extension framework is very easy to work with. We can pull metrics from a variety of different sources. Now, we were talking earlier about Shawn mentioned things like Telegraph. So you can take advantage of existing, connectors that are out there for StatsD or Telegraph. If StatsD and Telegraph can, connect to your Dell EMC storage device, yeah, absolutely. We could just be ingesting metrics from it. So remember, we're not. We would not be thought of as the type of detailed SAN type monitoring solution, but if there was, high-level metrics that you wanted to pull from your SAN into Dynatrace, you can absolutely do that. And an example of that, actually, if we go into the hub, Shawn, I think there is a VMware SAN. There we go. Yeah, vSAN. So right down there, if you go in there, that VMware vSAN. So that's basically a way of being able to connect to the VMware, storage devices that are out there. So this is something that we definitely can do. We just maybe haven't had a chance to get it done and get it published up into the hub. All right.
I was just going to mention as well, too, not to go into it too far, but in Dynatrace, too, being able to see all the way down into the disks and into the LUNs is just a standard staple of what Dynatrace does. So if you pick a host, for example, and even though it's not going to go directly into the, it's not going to give you the back end perspective necessarily out of the box for that particular brand of storage that you're talking about. All I've done here is I've just gone to a host view where you can see kind of the key metrics for the host. And if I go into contributing disks, I can actually see the actual disks that are being presented to this host. And then Dynatrace is tracking all of that too. So it's watching the throughput, the IOPS, the disk latency, and everything, all really kind of what Dynatrace's core philosophy is, looking at it from the application perspective, like what is really important to the users. So you can get really close or almost right down to the actual LUN of what you're looking for. And then, certainly at any point with any product, you're going to want to use kind of whatever the Dell specific product is that they've built specifically to manage their own hardware. You could then flip over to that, go right to that LUN that Dynatrace told you, go right to that particular, disk that it's mentioning, and, troubleshoot kind of, and actually make the change to fix it right there. So,
and if you want, you can actually, add this stuff onto a dashboard as well. So as a matter of fact, if we go into the dashboards there, Shawn, and do a search for the dashboard with the name storage.
Sounds simple, easy to remember.
And well, there's a clouds. Yeah, I'll try that one. Go in the cloud storage. That's fine. It sort of illustrates the point that in this particular case, we happen to be connecting to the Google Cloud storage data, but we could be connecting to any sort of other mechanisms. Give me 1 second, and let me share these dashboards, because I just realized that there we go. Let's try that. Actually, you know what? Let me just take control of the screen to show everyone. So I'm just going to share my screen for a second, and you guys see my screen? Yep, there we go. And let's go back to here. So here's an example. This basically is a dashboard that we're pulling from those vSAN metrics that we were looking at before. What we've done here is we basically, we're aggregating the metrics so we can see what's the result over the last, free space over the last 90 days, last 30 days, last 7 days. Is there a trend? Yeah, the trend over time is we're using up storage over time. Here you can see that we've got our VM disk usage broken out by VM, our storage queue latency, our storage read write, our host disk usage rates. So 100%. So long as we can get access to those metrics, we can pull them into Dynatrace, we can monitor them, we can visualize them, we can throw them onto a dashboard. All right, back to you, Shawn.
There was just for a quick follow-up, for the tenant URL.
Yeah, so I can't share that with you because the tenant that I'm using this is one of our demo tenants. So I can't share that publicly. But what you can do is basically, if you're new to Dynatrace, sign up for a free trial. It's real simple. It takes like less than 2 minutes. And then within your Dynatrace subscription, you just basically go down on the left nav. Why don't we show people how to do this? On the left nav, and to the tokens. Once you've done the free trial, basically you've signed up for the free trial, you've got an instance of Dynatrace that looks like this.
Gotcha.
Just type in the filter menu token.
Token, okay.
Yeah. And here you can see we've got this option for access tokens. So you basically, if you have permission to do so, we don't have permission in this instance because this is a shared
tenant for everybody. Yeah. So they don't want us blowing something up. Sure.
Yeah, they don't want us messing around with stuff. But basically, you just click on a button over in the right corner there that says Generate New Token. You select the different permissions that you want for the token. Once you've generated it, you can use it in that BizOps configurator. All right, we're getting near the top of the hour. We've covered like so much new stuff today. Like we've never talked about ServiceNow. We never really gone into the BizOps configurator or access tokens, and so we've covered quite a bit. Folks, if there's other questions, please feel free to type them into the chat window. We're happy to answer them.
So I'd love to get to the problem if we could, though, for a minute, just because I feel like everything we've been doing is leading up to this one glorious moment of problem cards. So is it cool to go ahead and jump in on that one, Jonesy?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. Fantastic. So essentially what we've been talking about so far today, well, in my little demo segment anyway, was around getting Dynatrace on the systems. Super easy to do. That Smartscape that we looked at before, that starts to generate all of that data for you and keep a good real-time map going. Dynatrace is then using all of those transactions, all those little blue lines you see, and all the little individual steps in here are all of the throughput that's moving between hosts and between your services, I guess, on those hosts, to actually do the functions that you want to get done with your business on the site. What Dynatrace, though, is doing with all that data, though, is the Davis AI engine that we have. It's built into the product. It's not a slapped on or duct taped on thing. It is integral to how Dynatrace works. Looking at all of those transactions, and it's looking at logins, or is looking at how you do searches, or how people use the site for how did things look right now? How did they look an hour ago, yesterday, or a week ago at the same time? And Dynatrace is confident that if something starts to go out of whack or look unusual, it knows that it's not normal for this time of day. And Dynatrace will automatically generate a problem card for you, as I'm showing an example of here, that shows what is being impacted in your environment and what the root cause is of it. Because of that Smartscape, it knows what the real root cause is, because it really knows what's happening both side to side and, like you saw a little bit ago, top to bottom, from the services down to the host, down to the data center that it's running in, and doesn't have to go hunting or kind of make a guess. And it really frees you up to just look at a problem when it's coming, address it, and hopefully fix it before your users even know that something isn't working well. So in a quick view of this problem card, what you're seeing here is a problem that started at 2:03 a.m. a couple of days ago. And it was open for about 27 minutes. It's showing you the services and everything that was impacted. But super cool to this and super critical is that with Dynatrace, unique among platforms that do observability, is the clear ability to see how many users are being impacted. Because remember, it's looking at the front end as well as everything that's going on the back end and stitching all of these transactions together, giving you full visibility. You can see all the service calls that were impacted and all the users themselves that were impacted by this. And it shows impacts on this side of the screen. You can see I've got some HTTP monitors. I've got a couple of different web applications, 2 different versions. With Dynatrace, again, because it's seeing everything coming in, one problem card gets generated with both both victims on the front end being shown. So you don't have 2 incidents and 2 different teams trying to chase, it turns out to be the same root cause. Dynatrace pulls it all together for you here. And this part is so specific, but I love pointing this out because it's been so helpful for me and a lot of customers I share this with. When it's showing here that the response time is degraded, generally it knows that in general, it's like half a second for these transactions to flow. And Dynatrace has detected that it's taking over 1 second for these transactions to move. That doesn't seem like much. It's like, yeah, whatever, if it's under 2 seconds, it's fine, right? But with Dynatrace, you're able to really have confidence that it's never above that half second time frame. And with Dynatrace pointing this out, no amount of staring at dashboards, no amount of sort of like training your eyeballs, watching things 24/7, trying to look for little bumps in graphs and data could possibly catch, right, a half a second difference. But Dynatrace knows that this is not normal, and it is proactively letting you know that those tremors are starting. And even though there's not a major earthquake and there's not major problems and things aren't breaking and transactions are failing, uniquely in Dynatrace, you can detect these things well ahead of when it's going to be a big problem and get ahead of it when it's only a second, when people haven't really had a problem yet. And not only is it telling you that things are coming and you can get ahead of it with Dynatrace, it's giving me the root cause over here on the right side, being this check destination service is degrading, and it is the reason that the front end is starting to have problems. And also with Dynatrace, we mentioned the ServiceNow integration a little bit ago. You can do this with lots of different tools, but you can connect with Dynatrace into ServiceNow. And in this case, we got the deployment event. So Dynatrace knows this service started to have a problem. It knows exactly when this deployment event happened leading up to this service to have issues. And it gives me the names of the people I need to reach out to right here on this page. So an operations person can see this happen, see the root cause, and know who to reach out to. And you're resolving the problem in minutes rather than hunting for hours and then trying to find the right people to look at things. So in a quick nutshell, that's what Dynatrace is doing at its core and saves customers tons of time and prevents just war room after war room because it can do something like this. So I'll pause there for a second, Jonesy, see if that's anything else you want to hit on the problem card or.
Yeah, no, that's that's great, Shawn. Thank you so much. It really is impressive when you put all this stuff together and the way it combines all of this information and just provides a very simple to understand answer, right? Here's a problem. Here's who it's impacting. Here's the nature of the problem. Here's what's causing the problem. It's just so useful. We do have a couple of questions, or at least one more question, which is, does ServiceNow integration require DDU licenses to view Dynatrace CI data in the CMDB? The answer is no. Typically, the DDUs are only going to be consumed when Dynatrace is ingesting data. Okay, so if you're extracting data from Dynatrace at this point, I do not believe that is going to consume any DDUs with, from that standpoint. So the Service Graph connector is not going to consume any DDUs, which is, obviously price wise, that's a great bonus for everyone, right? Also, getting back to David's question around the storage. So, David, I found this blog article that is not by Dynatrace. So this is completely third parties. Got absolutely, this is not our content. This is somebody out in the world that actually is showing how they combined Dynatrace, Telegraph, and SNMP to basically safeguard a Synology disk station, which is, their storage array. That's a really interesting sort of article in a way of how to, sort of tie in, all of these different data sources, into Dynatrace. So thanks for the question, because it gave me the opportunity to look something up that I hadn't seen this article before. And it's actually a really interesting kind of story about, using Dynatrace and Telegraph to, safeguard their storage array. Really cool stuff. Thank you for that.
It's just like fun.
It is, isn't it?
Like I just got a weekend project for myself here. This looks cool.
Right on. All right, folks, we're at the top of the hour now. Was there any last things, Shawn, that you wanted to cover?
No, I think I'm good for 4 o'clock. Hopefully that was useful for everybody, and certainly enjoy sharing that stuff. So hopefully it was good to see as well.
Very cool. All right. Well, listen, Shawn, thank you so much for walking us through this. We had such an interesting conversation today. We covered so many topics that we don't normally get into. Today's session was really successful. And, obviously, folks, thank you so much for your questions. You had some really on-point questions that, quite honestly, I wasn't expecting, and led to some great conversations. So, thank you very much. And that's what makes these getting to know Dynatrace sessions so useful, are the questions that you guys ask. So come again in a couple of weeks for another session of getting to know Dynatrace. In the interim, keep an eye out for the principal's office, where our principal SEs have a couple of interesting sessions where they walk you through all sorts of really technically detailed stuff related to Dynatrace. We've got also an Ask Me Anything happening on Tuesday focused on Azure. So make sure you get signed up for that. And Kate, we've talked about this before. Keep an eye out for what's going on at our Perform conference in February. So Perform's going to be down in Las Vegas in person at the Cosmopolitan Hotel in February. Go to the Dynatrace website to find out more. Sign up as soon as you can for the hot day sessions. So as soon as the hot day sessions get finalized and announced, sign up as soon as you can, because there's limited space. And if you miss out, there's not much that we can do to fit people in. Those hot day sessions are a hot commodity. See what I did there?
Go fast.
With that, folks, we're going to call it a day. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you, Shawn, for walking us through a great demonstration of Dynatrace. And with that, folks, have a great day, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye all.
Ciao.